Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Dream Big Today, and this is our new nuggets. I'm going to do Psalms 99 from today's reading. We use the one-year Bible, which gives us a little bit of Psalms, Proverbs, Old Testament, New Testament every day. And so today's Psalms is 99. It's a short one. It's like 9 verses, and it's just reminding us of who God is. This is like celebrating, I can't talk good, his kingship over creation. We focus on his holiness and the wonder that he has made for his people to come into his presence without danger. We read this morning in Luke how when Jesus was crucified, the curtain was ripped in half. And that allowed us to be able to come to God without someone else breaking the way for us or doing it for us. And so this is something that we can just read and enjoy and just remember everything. Now, in these short scriptures, it mentions holy 3 times. Your name is holy. Bow before his feet, for he is holy. And then at the end, it says, for the Lord our God is holy. So let's look at it a little bit more. The Lord is king. Let the nations tremble. He sits on his throne between the cherubim. Let the whole earth quake. Isn't that something that I believe it's Matthew that we talked about this morning records that whenever the stone rolled away, there was a earthquake and the stone rolled away. Well, here it says, let the whole earth quake. The Lord sits in majesty in Jerusalem, exalted above all nations. Let them praise your great and awesome name. Your name is holy. So many great things in this today, and of course I highlighted holy, but I also highlighted some of the action things that it speaks of. It says that Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel also called on his name. These are great patriarchs in the Bible that had faith. They did big things. They were all over in, I can't even explain what I'm wanting to say. But they weren't just ordinary men, and they called on his name. They didn't do it themselves. Now, probably sometimes they might have made a mistake and started to do something without praying and talking to God about it. But it says in verse 7, he spoke to Israel from the pillar of cloud. And they followed the laws and decrees he gave them. So he spoke and they followed. And then 8, it said, O Lord, our God, you answered them. You were a forgiving God. So they cried and he answered. He spoke and they followed. He answered and he was forgiving. And then 9, it reminds us to exalt the Lord our God and worship at his holy mountain, for the Lord our God is holy. So let's talk about that for just a minute. We talk about it, or it speaks of, I'm trying to get my thoughts together again here. God's reign. God rules over all, seated above the cherubim, causing the earth to tremble. It talks about his holiness. Repeatedly, it stresses God's holy nature in verse 3, 5, and 9, calling for worship at his holy mountain. Then it speaks of justice and righteousness. God is praised for establishing equity and executing justice, particularly for Israel, and that's in verse 4. Historical faithfulness. It recalls God's interactions with Moses, Aaron, and Samuel, who called on him and how he answered their prayer, yet disciplined their sins. You know, a good father does answer their children, and he gives them discipline if it's needed. Well, God knows. And then there's the call to worship. This psalm urges exalting God, recognizing his holiness and authority. Look at verses 5 and 9. Back up to verse 3. It says, the last part of that, your name is holy. God's holy name carries a deep significance in religious traditions. Man, I can't hardly talk today. Symbolizing his identity, his authority, and his divine nature. In the Bible, the most sacred name of God is represented by the tetragrammaton, Yahweh. This name was revealed to Moses in Exodus 3:14, where God declares, I am who I am. This emphasizes his eternal existence and unchanging nature. I think that as you read over this Psalms today, read it in reverence. Just take some time and just let these precious words about our Father soak into your heart, your mind, your soul. And just know how precious and how awesome it is for us to be able to read this today and just know who he is. Thank you so much for joining us today at noon, and come back tomorrow. Elizabeth will be here tomorrow, and we will continue in Judges. Love y'all.